Hey guys, breaking news. I had to restructure my script for today as far as topics are concerned, but Hayden Christensen, it's been confirmed that Anakin Skywalker, his role as Anakin, will return in the Disney Plus series Ahsoka, the Ahsoka series. So let's talk about that and whatever else I decide to talk about because I had to change things up. But anyway, Talking Talk Show podcast coming at you now. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Talking Talk Show podcast, episode 8. And if you're wondering, why is it just episode 8? I thought last week was episode 8. Well, no, last week was a special DC fandom edition of the Talking Talk Show podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. A lot of things dropped during the DC fandom event. But we're back to talking about some of the hot topics from the past week. As a reminder, the Talking Talk Show podcast is your unofficial weekly pop culture podcast where I talk about the big topics as far as movies, streaming, video games, collectibles, all that stuff, and I put my own little spin on it, and we have fun every week with certain discussions on certain topics. So thank you for everyone who is returning, either it's through the YouTube channel or audio form on podcast platforms. If you are new, welcome, and I hope you enjoy what you see. If you are new, don't forget, hit that like and subscribe. And for audio listeners, if you want an audio version of this show, you could find the Talking Talk Show podcast in the Low Key Geek channel, in any of your podcast platform of choice like iTunes and Spotify. So be sure to check it out there. So all that out of the way, some good stuff to talk about. But like I mentioned at the top, breaking news, just as I was about to hit record here on this show, saw Twitter really quick and big news was dropped. It was broken by The Hollywood Reporter, and that is Hayden Christensen, the darling of the Star Wars prequels, has been confirmed to be returning as Anakin Skywalker. Hello. You think I've had enough coffee yet? No. Anakin Skywalker in the Disney Plus Ashoka series. And if you're wondering if this is just rumor or what have you, it looks like Rosario Dawson also confirmed this on her Twitter account, and she tweeted something out, get ready, something along those lines. But this is extremely exciting news. Now, again, for some of us, this may not be as surprising because the rumor mill has been rampant with Hayden coming back at one point or another. I think the biggest rumor and speculation was that he was going to come back for the Obi-Wan series, but there has been no confirmation about that. This is the first time we got confirmation that this character of Anakin Skywalker that Hayden made famous in the Star Wars prequels is coming back to a series or some form of media, and he will be reprising his role in the Ahsoka Disney Plus series, which is a lot of fun. But details on what's going to be happening in this Ahsoka series are still kept under wraps, so we have no idea what's going to happen in this series, what we're going to see as far as Ahsoka is concerned. So even though this is exciting news, I think the big question we have to now ask is, where does this series take place within the Star Wars timeline? Because it depends on what kind of version of Anakin we're going to get. The last time Ahsoka and Anakin met, Anakin was already full-blown Darth Vader, and they had their little squabble there, and they had their fight, and that was the last time that they saw each other during the Clone Wars series. And I believe there may have been, if memory serves me right, there may have been something in Rebels as well. But it looks like the last time that they really went toe-to-toe, or they had some sort of meet, was during Clone Wars, or at least in the cartoon version, in the cartoon form. And again, my memory is like all over the place because I feel like I've watched all those shows like so intertwined with each other. I forget what's Rebels and what's Clone Wars and what have you. I'm sure one of you will correct me in the comments, and that's perfectly fine. Do remind us when the last time they met, but they met in animated form. But the last time we saw Ahsoka was in live action form during season 2 of The Mandalorian. And we all know The Mandalorian, at least timeline wise, this takes place after the events of Return of the Jedi. We already know that because, spoiler, we've seen Luke Skywalker in the last episode of season 2 in his full Return of the Jedi garb, and this was already after the events of his showdown with Darth Vader. And, we all know Darth Vader passes on. We see Hayden's version of Anakin as a Force ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi in live action form, which is a very controversial topic as well, because we don't see David Prowse there anymore, and what they switched him out because they were doing the special editions and all that stuff like that. So for some reason they thought it was a better idea to have a younger version of Anakin, Darth Vader, appear in ghost form, in Force ghost form. So timeline wise, where is Ahsoka gonna fall in line? It could go different ways, right? Given that we've already seen the version of Anakin as a Force ghost, could this be just him appearing as a Force ghost to Ahsoka, with maintaining the timeline that we've last seen her in live action form from The Mandalorian? Could she just be interacting with Anakin as she's doing what she's doing and going through what she's going through? That could be one possibility. Another possibility is that maybe we'll see him appear in flashbacks, right? Maybe Ahsoka will harken back on her time with Anakin or what have you, but then we would have to get a younger version of Ahsoka, because Ahsoka was definitely in younger age when she interacted with Anakin before he became Darth Vader, right? Or will this series be kind of a prequel, right? Taking place before the events of The Mandalorian and all that stuff. But still, we would still be facing with age and the difference in age there, right? Because Anakin, as we know, at least the Hayden Christensen version, took place many, 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 many years ago, right? And then he's definitely got older and all that stuff like that. And then to the time he passed on, he was definitely a much older person. So obviously, I don't think they're going to put Anakin in all of this de-aging material. I mean, not de-aging, but age him up and make him look older, maybe with some prosthetics or what have you like that. Because it would be kind of a waste of talent, if you ask my opinion on it, to have him come back and just put all his makeup on him, right? But then what would Rosario Dawson do? Are we going to de-age her and make her look much younger to play a younger version of Ahsoka if this was to be a prequel, right? So it does kind of open the doors as far as speculation's concerned and all that. I personally think it's going to be probably in form of a Force Ghost. We're going to see him in Force Ghost form. Maybe some flashbacks, but I do feel like maybe there's going to be interactions with Anakin as a Force Ghost. And I don't know if we'll be happy with that. I mean, we won't know until we actually see it play out in front of us, right? But I am happy that Hayden is getting another chance at playing the role of Anakin. I feel like going back and looking at the prequels and all that, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He was terrible. But I do think it was a product of bad directing. George Lucas made Natalie Portman look horrible as an actress. I feel like Ewan McGregor didn't really get to fully flesh out the character that maybe he may have wanted to, or the character that we could have seen him flesh out. And that's what's making the Obi-Wan series very exciting, because now we're going to get to see him return as Obi-Wan and under the tutelage of another director, another writer, and we get to see how this version is going to play out in front of us, right? So it will be very interesting to see how Hayden is going to do acting wise, being directed by someone different, because Hayden as a whole is a very good actor. If you look at that movie he did, Shattered Glass, and I feel like everyone refers to that movie, but it's true, you really get to see his full acting chops there. And then I think he's done like smaller things from time to time, but it's just nice to see him get this chance, because I think the fans are now open and very welcoming to having him come back and reprise his role of Anakin. And Disney and Lucasfilm and all that, like, they haven't been shy in promoting Hayden and having Hayden show up in a lot of events. recently we had New York Comic Con, and he was here in New York City, and he was doing special events. He went to the Empire State Building and did like this nice presentation and welcoming New York Comic Con back and all that. And he's been seen at Star Wars Celebration. When he comes up on stage, there's huge applause and all that. So I do feel like the fan base, at least my generation fan base, is open and ready to welcome him back and give him another shot. Now, the generation who grew up with the prequels, who are now a lot older, will always have fond memories of Hayden. And I feel like for them, their Star Wars journey started with the prequels. So they're always going to have Hayden as that figure for themselves, kind of like how we had our own Luke Skywalker and our own version of Darth Vader and what have you. So I think they're always going to be welcoming for him to come back and reprise this role. So very exciting stuff. I'm really, really excited to see how this is going to play out. What's going to be, what his role is going to be like. Is it going to be a big role? Is it going to be just like we get to see him maybe one episode or 2 episodes or what have you? What version are we going to see him as? So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you excited for this? How do you think he's going to return? Like, in what form? What is the Ahsoka series going to be like? Is this going to be continuing on the same timeline that we saw in The Mandalorian, or are we going to play with the timelines a little bit? I'm very curious to see what you guys think and how excited you guys are with this piece of news. So cool. So moving on and keeping within the Disney family, earlier in the week, the big Disney news that came out was that Marvel has announced that a lot of their Phase 4 movies are being pushed back, some significantly. But for the quick list, I'll run down and recap what the quick list is here. It starts off with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which I know a lot of people are waiting for because this is going to continue on the whole multiverse storyline that we got introduced to as far as WandaVision and Loki. We do know Wanda is going to be in this movie as well with Doctor Strange. So this moves from March 25th to May 6th of next year. Thor: Love and Thunder moves from May 6th to July 8th. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, the sequel to Black Panther, moves from July 8th to November 11th. The Marvels has been postponed to early 2023. And Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania has been bumped from February 17th, 2023 to July 28th, 2023. And along with these kind of shifts and all that, it was also announced that the 5th Indiana Jones, starring Harrison Ford, who is reprising his role once again, will now open a whole year later. From its original July 29, 2022, it's been pushed to June 30th, 2023. So a lot of jumps there, and there's a lot of speculation as to why these changes have been made. Is Disney trying to be greedy as far as box office is concerned? Because maybe their hopes are by moving these dates a little bit back, they can benefit more from more people going back to the movie theaters. Hopefully the situation that we're in right now in the world has improved tremendously, and there's not that much of a concern, or the concerns have really lessened a lot, so that more and more people can start returning to movie theaters or what have you. I personally think that a lot of these shifts are due to improve on production situations and production morale and tight deadline and turnaround times. So the reason why I bring this up is because in a previous episode, I did talk about the IATSE union, who were fighting back on Hollywood about poor production conditions, quick turnaround times, less pay, and all that kind of stuff like that. And they were threatened to go on strike starting this past Monday on the 18th. But I'll get into a more deep recap as to the latest events from that. But I do feel like a lot of these switches and changes are due to improving on those production conditions and to kind of buffer themselves in case there was a potential issue. Because if this union did eventually go on strike, Who knows how long that's going to last, but that's going to halt a lot of Hollywood productions for a while. Basically, shut down Hollywood, because this union of 60,000 plus members covers a broad range of tasks on a production set. You got your makeup people, your costume people, your hair people, your actual set designers, right? Your sound people, your camera and lighting. So huge Hollywood productions will be really hugely affected by a lot of this stuff if they were to go on strike. So I think Disney was proactive and kind of made these changes. And there's quite possibly other reasons involved that we are not yet made aware of. Maybe they're restructuring some of their storylines. Maybe they're changing things up to kind of push things along with what they want to accomplish for this new phase 4 that they're in right now. So that's just my take on it. We haven't really received a lot of updates as far as news is concerned about these changes. Yeah, it kind of sucks that we have to wait several months more from their original dates, but we're still getting these movies, right? We just have to be a little patient. And it's not like there's a lack of content, new content that is coming out, because in a couple weeks in November, not a couple, but in November at least, we have the new Hawkeye series coming out on Disney Plus, and we still have the Miss Marvel show that's coming out. I believe there's also She-Hulk that's still being in the works, and all this other Disney Plus series and shows that they're working on. So there's going to be enough content for us to fill in the gaps before we get another major Marvel movie. And of course, we have Eternals that's coming out next week. Not next week, but in 2 weeks. So that is going to be the next Marvel movie that we get to enjoy. And then of course, we have the new Spider-Man No Way Home in December. So we still have stuff coming out, and we have to wait a little bit. I am curious as to how it's going to affect the Indiana Jones movie, because let's face it, Harrison Ford is not young anymore. He is up there in age. I believe he's 79 years old now. And for him to be coming back in this type of role, it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Unless his role is going to be minor, and we may now finally get the handing of the baton to someone else, or maybe the movie's going to play more on flashbacks and past events that maybe the current Indiana is going through and recollecting in his mind, and retelling stories, kind of like what we saw with the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles on TV back in the day. Who knows? I mean, it'll be definitely interesting to see what happens here. But yeah, that was like really big news that happened earlier in the week. And now that we're in this topic, let me get back to the whole IATSE union strike, right? So as I mentioned before in a previous episode, the IATSE, let's just call them like IATSE, right? Or IATSE, IATSE. The IATSE union were threatening to go on strike because of poor conditions for their union workers, right? And this includes bad pay, quick turnaround times, unfair treatment on set, all this kind of stuff like that, right? And if you want like a full list, I did create a clip out of all the details. You can find that on the YouTube channel in the playlist, in one of the playlists I have there. But this union, which compromises of, like I said, 60,000 workers. Within this union, there's 36 unions overall. Now, basically, they had a vote the previous week, and they all voted almost unanimously to agree to go on strike. And that strike would have took place on Monday, this past Monday, on the 18th. Sunday prior, they were able to strike a tentative deal with the AMPTP, which is like a bunch of producers and studio heads and all that stuff that represent the Hollywood productions, right? So there was a tentative deal that they struck. And basically the details of this deal is that the tentative agreement provides a 54-hour weekend, which is a lot more than what they're getting now, because usually Hollywood productions would shut down for the weekend. But because of these quick turnaround times, they found a lot of union workers having to work during their weekends, half of the weekend, sometimes full weekends, depending on the production. But now they agreed to provide a 54-hour weekend and a 10-hour turnaround time between shifts for all workers on all productions. But no mention about increase in pay or additional benefits as far as like medical benefits are concerned or anything like that, which is why a lot of the union members were in heavy disagreement on this tentative deal. Now, the members of the unions will get to vote whether or not to continue on with this tentative deal or not, and that voting could take up to several weeks or what have you like that. So Hollywood is saved for now, but this does not mean that this is gonna end things and everyone's gonna be all hunky-dory and happy and go back to work, no problems and no questions asked. It could still be overturned by the members of the unions. So it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen there. But based off of a lot of things that I've read and a lot of things that I've seen on Twitter, a lot of union members are not happy with this tentative deal, so much so that they're calling the leaders of the IATSE, they're saying that they're failing them, that they're basically failing in striking that agreement that they really want for the unions and all that. And I think one of the other major disappointments that the union members had was that conditions of revolving around streaming, because streaming now, production times are so fast and they're very quick, and because there's a lot of content that needs to be produced. And this includes streaming platforms, as I mentioned before: Disney Plus, HBO Max, Paramount Plus, Apple Plus, all that stuff, right? So one of the things that I've read also that I'll quote right here is one major disappointment for the IATSE is that streaming services will not have to pay extra residuals into the pension and health plans that had largely flown under the radar as the focus turned to long hours and rest periods. So it looks like, again, the tentative deal really revolved around just breaks, like break periods and times in between productions, weekends, but doesn't address anything as far as pay, anything as far as benefits are concerned, and actual work conditions that are done on these production sets. So I don't think this is the last we're going to hear about this. I'm pretty sure once they really have the full-on vote from the members, that some other things are going to come out, and it's very possible that this tentative deal will not be agreed upon. But that is the latest of what's happening there. If there's anything that I've missed and you may be well versed in what's going on, do let me know in the comments. In that clip out video, I did have nice conversations with certain members and people who are more closely related to this. So they've given some insights and all that. Again, based off of everything that I've read, everything that I've gathered, this is basically where things stay right now. And we will see what happens afterwards and what's going to carry on once all the members of the unions have their voices heard and the voting process has gone through and what the end results are. So again, I will be keeping a close eye on this because it will, again, affect highly Hollywood production across the board. And if we have this strike go through, then you think the Disney delays are big now. Wait until we hear other delays from other studios and what have you. Since we're talking about the IATSE union and workers in production and all that stuff, I did want to mention this really quickly. It's very unfortunate news that broke a couple nights ago, and something happened on the set of this movie called Rust that is starring Alec Baldwin. Cinematographer Halyna Hutchins was unfortunately killed by a discharged weapon on the set on Thursday of this production. Director Joel Souza, I believe that's how you pronounce the name, was also injured and taken to a local hospital at that time when this happened. Basically what happened here, it sounds like a gun prop that was used by Alec Baldwin, which are, people have to realize that these are actual real firearms that they kind of treat so that it's just fires blanks, but it's still a functioning firearm. However, whoever works on these weapons will modify them so that no projectile will ever fire and it just fires blanks. And we've seen that happen in movies all the time. We've seen a lot behind the scenes, but unfortunately the one that he was carrying did have one projectile loaded in the chamber. When he fired, unfortunately it struck fatally the cinematographer on the set, Halyna Hutchins, and injured the director. And it's a very unfortunate news. It's very sad. The minute I read this, I quickly remembered what happened to Brandon Lee when he was filming The Crow, and he was killed on set pretty much under the same circumstances. A prop gun fired and discharged something that struck Lee fatally, and he died afterwards. So a lot of prayers and thoughts go out to the family and friends of Halyna Hutchins there. I hope director Joel Souza can recover quickly. I feel bad also for Alec Baldwin. He's the one holding this gun, and because of a big accident, huge mistake, it took the life of someone on set, someone that he was working with, and injured the director that he was working with. So just wanted to take a quick moment to talk about this and kind of have this moment for Halyna, because this is a tragic news. And of course, I'm sure there's going to be more investigations as to why this happened, how this could have happened, and what have you. Now maybe the talks about not having these real firearms on set anymore and just do everything post-production as far as like special effects are concerned, or do things differently. It's very unfortunate. You would think that in this day and age that we're in now, these types of mishaps will no longer happen. So it does, beg the question is, how can something like this still happen? When this happened with Lee, this was in the 90s. This was like a while ago. So things are a lot different from then there is now. With the amount of special effects houses that we have, a lot of different ways that you go about showing, special effects on screen and what have you, you would think that they would have changed things up to prevent these type of accidents from happening. But it is very unfortunate. So let's just take a quick moment to remember Halyna there. All right. There's never really an easy transition from news like that, but we will do our best here. Something that I found extremely shocking, and this is news that broke out last weekend, and I just wanted to talk about it real quick because I did talk about this again as one of my anticipated shows for the year, based off of a property that I was a pretty big fan of, and that's Y: The Last Man. So it was... Now, Y: The Last Man is currently playing on Hulu, and I believe now we're 2 episodes away from the season finale, or 2 episodes until the season ends. But it was announced that Hulu has decided to cancel Y: The Last Man, which is extremely unfortunate and kind of surprising that it came out last weekend, pretty much out of nowhere. And it seems to have been pretty much a shock to showrunner there, Eliza Clark, when she decided to tweet about it last Sunday. And basically she said, "Y: The Last Man, we have learned that we will not be moving forward with FX on Hulu for season 2 of Y: The Last Man. I have never in my life been more committed to a story. There is so much more left to tell. We had a gender diverse team of brilliant artists led by women at almost every corner of our production. It is the most collaborative, creatively fulfilling, and beautiful thing I've ever been a part of. We don't want it to end." And then basically a couple days afterwards, there was some more additional information that came out as to why they decided to cancel the show. And it sounds like it was more along the concerns of budget and finances. They're extremely concerned about moving forward with the production because of all the delays, the amount of money they had to put into the series, into the contracts of the actors and actresses, extending contracts because of the delays, having to pay them to come back for reshoots or to finish certain episodes. And then if this show doesn't, really pick up, to commit again to another set of round of financing for season 2, it looks like they were just not confident that this would be a good choice and something good to do moving forward. So basically, it just continues the troubled history of Y: The Last Man and adapting it to either the big screen or the small screen or some sort of screen, right? Just to recap on the journey that this property had, the original comics were published between 2002 and 2008, right? When the series finally wrapped up, there was a lot of talks that it was being picked up to be a feature film. But after a lot of back and forth and failed talks and all that kind of stuff like that, it just never happened. But by 2014, this is going back 7 years ago now. The rights of the series got back into control under Brian K. Vaughan, who is the creator and writer. And then he had negotiations with FX, who picked up the rights in 2015. But for at least 3 to 4 years, nothing's happened. But then 2019, FX had ordered Y the Last Man to finally become a series. That same year, the network split with the series' original showrunners and eventually brought on Eliza Clark to be the new showrunner for the show. In early 2020, the role of Yorick had to be recast with Ben Schnetzer taking the lead role. Then when, the pandemic happened, it stalled production, and basically this was originally supposed to air on the FX cable network channel. It was then moved to the deal that they have with Hulu to be featured on the streaming platform, right? And then it finally launched in September. And then there were the reviews that came out. I reviewed the first couple of episodes, the first 3 episodes, and admittingly, I was not fully impressed. I mean, I am interested in the storyline. I am interested to see what their approach is, and some of the acting is great, but overall I felt the acting was very bland and not very, the way I put it, it was very tough for me to watch. It just wasn't strong for me, a lot of the acting. And some of the critics were saying that the show itself just felt bland and, not that appealing or interesting. It didn't capture you like how The Walking Dead captured you when it first came out, right? And I always like to give shows the 3-episode test. And if after 3 episodes I'm fully in, you got me, you hooked me in, then yeah, I'm going to watch the rest of it. But I was like teetering. I was like, I don't know. I am still very curious to see how it plays out. I'll give it a shot, but I'm not going to be eagerly going episode to episode, week to week, watching the show. Not like how I am with like the Marvel shows or the Star Wars shows or even Wu-Tang. That's also on Hulu. That I go watch week to week. But why? I kind of just like say, I'll get to it when I got to it. And I pretty much fell off, to be quite honest with you. I haven't gotten back after watching the 4th episode. So I'm still planning to watch it, but it's going to be bittersweet because once the season ends, that's it. We may never have a chance to watch this series again. Now, Eliza did mention that she's going to try to talk to other streaming platforms and hopefully get it picked up. We've seen this happen before. Lucifer was rescued by Netflix, and Netflix was able to continue the Lucifer series. Cobra Kai was picked up from YouTube Premium, which not a lot of people were watching, but it was one of their best things that they've ever had. Probably the only thing that they have ever had that was worth watching, and Netflix came and rescued it as well. And now we have the 4th season coming out by the end of the year. So hopefully, we can get to see the same thing happen here again, where maybe Netflix steps in and say, hey, all right, we'll pick up another season or 2 and let's see what you guys do with it. Or maybe this can go to Amazon or what have you. But it is pretty unfortunate because, again, when you look at the source material and when you go back to the comic books, the story itself is fascinating. One of the most well-written comic storylines that I've ever seen. And, it was very intriguing. And I really wanted to be able to enjoy this on screen, just like how I did with The Walking Dead when it came out. And, hopefully it'll capture more of an audience that could possibly go back and start rereading the comic books, or just experience everything for the first time through the show. But yeah, it's one of those things that happens to, at times, certain productions or properties where they just have this cloud over them and they just never have the right luck. Look at The Crow. They've been trying to reboot that franchise for the longest time now. And after the first movie, which for me still falls within my top 10 favorite movies of all time, they've never been able to recapture that essence and that kind of lightning in the bottle that the first movie had. They tried doing a Crow TV series, which I thought was promising, extremely promising. I forgot what station or what network it aired on, but I remember watching it on weekends. It would play on a weekend, which is like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But the actor they hired for that role of Eric Draven was very well done, and it was continuing his storyline in a way. And I thought that was very promising, but that didn't last long either. And ever since then, they've been trying to reboot this series, but nothing has ever got off the ground. So it's unfortunate that they finally got off the ground here, and now they're being grounded once again. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully this is not the last we're going to hear about Y: The Last Man, but maybe the critical response of season 1 will lead to the determining factor whether or not this show will continue at all, period. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I will, as soon as the season ends, I'll make sure to catch up on all the episodes, and I'll do my full season recap, which might turn into just a series recap, and see what happens. But yeah, let me know if you guys have been watching this series at all. What are your thoughts on it? You know, has it hooked you? Is it something that you were interested in? I've heard from several people that they were really into this series, and it was like one of their favorite series of the year so far, which is great, you know. But I am very curious to hear what other people think about this series as a whole, and if we never get to see another season, are you going to be fine with that? Like, is it something where you're like, oh, well, you know, on to the next one, because there's so many things to watch anyway, right? So we'll get to see what happens. Hopefully more good news will come up. All right, y'all, before we get into some additional topics here, I just want to talk about Amazon Prime. Because why? Because it's spooky season. If you're like me right now, you are going through some of the classic horror movies, or you're catching up on horror movies that you haven't seen before. I just recently watched Midsommar for the first time. Woof! That was a doozy. But I really enjoyed it, and if it wasn't for Amazon Prime, I wouldn't have been able to check it out. So, like I mentioned, it is spooky season, so be prepared to scream as you stream the latest horror movies on Amazon Prime, just in time for Halloween. In addition to horror favorites you know and love, Prime Video has released 4 new Amazon original thriller titles: Black Box, The Lie, Nocturne, and Evil Eye. Amazon Prime is a great streaming service that allows you to stream many of your favorite movies, along with Prime original series like The Boys, Invincible, and the highly anticipated Wheel of Time that launches on November 19th. Not a member of Prime? No worries. Follow the link in the description to sign up for your free 30-day trial today. You can, of course, cancel anytime, but with such great streaming content, I'd be surprised if you do. Again, sign up today for your free 30-day trial by clicking on the link found in the description and prepare to be spooked. But in all seriousness, guys, Amazon Prime, now I know they're still trying to figure out their streaming service, you know, when it comes to like originals and all that stuff, but there's a lot of great content on there. I'm a huge fan of The Boys. If you haven't watched The Boys yet, you have to check it out. One of the great comic book adaptations that has their own TV show right now, or streaming show, as I should say. Invincible, something that was a shocker when it came out. You know, it took me a while to get into, but the animation, you know, just like it was ripped right off the comic book. So really, really great stuff there. And a lot of great movies, like I mentioned before, some originals from Amazon and some of the classics. So do check it out. And like I said, with the 30-day trial, you could cancel anytime you want. But do check it out. And if you click on the link in the description, it will also help support the channel. So be sure to do that, and I will be greatly appreciated. But speaking of streaming, guys and gals, have you watched that little teaser snippet from the new Cowboy Bebop live action series on Netflix called Lost Session? Now, I've been kind of critical about this series because of many things, and let's just get the big thing out of the way. Anytime you adapt anime to another form of media, which is whether it's a live action movie or a live action series, it's very hard to do. You know, because there are certain things you can get away with in anime form that you can't get away with in live action. And I think writers and directors and, you know, special effects people, they have a hard time trying to capture that same charm, that same spirit and essence that characters in a certain series are able to do in animated form compared to live action, right? So when I first started hearing that Cowboy Bebop was being translated to live action, of course I was extremely hesitant, right? Then we saw the first photos from the production itself. You know, John Chu playing the lead character of Spike there and all that. And I was like, I don't know. It looks kind of cheesy. You know, it looks like they're really trying their hardest to capture frame by frame, look by look, the same look of the anime characters, and that could be rough. That could be very, very hard going. Then during To Doom, Netflix's To Doom event, we were treated with the opening intro, where they basically, in live action form, mimicked the opening intro of the anime series, and I got hooked. I gotta tell you, the way they were able to capture the feel of the characters, the feel of the series as a whole, kind of like I said, that spirit and that charm, they were able to repurpose it and display it in a live action form of media that I was surprised that they were able to do. Now, of course, there's a lot of special effects and, you know, the way that they handled a lot of the scenes and all that stuff like that. A lot of post-production work, right? But still, it worked for me, right? So I'm like, all right, I may give this a shot. Then they released this little short, this little teaser, and they called it Lost Session, which pretty much gives you a good sense of how the characters interact with each other, how they go about, you know, because basically the story is that they're like bounty hunters, right? And it gives you a feel of how the series is going to look. And wow, I was extremely impressed. I believe the short is like 3 minutes or so and change, but the minute it ended, I was like, I need to see more. I really want to see more. They got me. It got me. This was the nail in the coffin for me. This got me. Now I really want to see it. I already said this was going to be a show that I was going to check out as one of my most anticipated for the rest of the year as far as streaming is concerned. But now they fully got me. I am fully on board. I'm going to check this out. The way that the action scenes were done together, the whole thing was just very meta in a way. They were interact with each other, but the characters, the live action characters, are jumping from panel to panel, as if you like something you would see in a manga or something that you would see in an anime, right? And the set changes really quickly the minute like the frame changes over, or you see them sliding through the frames, turning the frames into a weapon that they're using or whatever. I was really impressed on how they put that all together. That's a lot of work being put into this type of show. Now, if we see the same result in each episode, again, a lot of work, but I think the payoff is going to be huge because it really, really captured that feeling I got when I was watching the anime way back in the day. And it really, really reminded, I know a lot of people were saying kind of reminded them of like Scott Pilgrim. Edgar Wright's Scott Pilgrim, the movie. I can see that, but for me, it really felt more like Sin City, like a colorized version of Sin City, because Sin City is one of my favorite comic book adaptations as far as movies are concerned, because it captured the same feel you got as you were reading it in the pages of the graphic novels. You know, the framing, the transitions, the art style, you know, the cinematography. Even the way the character designs were and the special effects. Like, it felt like a live comic book put onto the big screen, and I loved every minute of it. It was so stylish and cinematic, right? And I feel like this is turning out to be a colorized version of that, and I'm impressed. And like I said, if every episode is going to have the same type of elements, then this is going to be a home run. This is going to be like one of those shows that I'm going to be really head over heels on. I'll be like, they did it. They finally did something that I never thought that they would be able to do. And this is you have to watch this. But I think for now, let's temper expectations because things could always change, right? First 2 episodes release, and I'm just like, what the hell is happening? Like, what is this? But do yourselves a favor, if you haven't watched the Lost Session teaser, check it out. It might change your mind if you were hesitant like myself. And if you do check it out, let me know what you think about it, because I am really, really impressed. I'm like so surprised that they were able to pull something like that off. It looks great. It looks fantastic. The action scenes were really well done. You know, the camera angles and the framing for a lot of the action scenes also reminded me a lot of like The Matrix and all that. So really, really good stuff. I really do hope the series can capture a lot of these elements episode to episode, because that's going to be a phenomenal achievement if they could do that. So yeah, do let me know what you guys think when you check it out and when you do. Cool. Switching gears here a little bit, let's talk about something video game related. Now, again, if you've listened to the show long enough, you know I've been very critical about Nintendo for a while. I just don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're planning as far as their gaming platform and all that. Yes, we finally got Metroid Dread, which is fantastic, and finally we're getting a Nintendo property with a new, fresh game, right? A fresh look. Something that harkens back to the old days, but is new and modernized and a lot of fun, and is getting good reviews all across the board for the most part. But that's like few and far in between. You know, we don't get this often. Now, you know, during their last, you know, Nintendo Direct, they announced that they were increasing the price of their Nintendo Online offering. But that's if you agree to, you know, go forward with the expansion tier of the membership. And at that time, they didn't reveal any pricing information, but they were saying that if you agree with the expansion tier, Nintendo Online plus expansion, you would get access to their new virtual console of the Nintendo 64, where you could play classic Nintendo 64 games. You know, you got games like Ocarina of Time and Paper Mario and Mario 64, Star Fox, all that kind of stuff like that. Then the big surprise was they announced that you can now get Genesis games as a virtual console, you know, and you'll get to play a lot of the early Genesis games. And it sounds like they were going to be adding things to that library like they do now with the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo virtual console there. And then that was it, right? And then more information was going to be provided later on. So now they finally gave us more info, and they gave us pricing. So the price for Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion packs, the new subscription tier, which adds, like I said, the Nintendo 64 games, the Genesis games, and they also included access to the bundle of the new Happy Home Paradise DLC for Animal Crossing New Horizons, which was a part of the same announcement that they announced that they were releasing a new DLC for Animal Crossing, so that everyone who, you know, played Animal Crossing during lockdown and gave it up once they were tired with it can finally go back, hopefully. At least that's what they're hoping. That the new individual price for a yearly subscription will be $49.99. $50 a year for just Nintendo 64 Virtual Console, Sega Genesis Virtual Console, and access to get the DLC for Animal Crossing as part of the subscription. Now, if you have a family membership, you would have to pay $79.99, $80 a year for this. Now, if you don't know what the original prices are, the yearly membership, $20 for single membership. The family membership is only $35. So this is a huge jump in pricing for, in my opinion, very little return. It ain't worth it. It is not worth it. Now, on top of like access to the virtual consoles and all that stuff like that, other benefits of the Nintendo Switch Online service is that it will include online multiplayer, so you're allowed to play online with friends on certain games. The classic Nintendo and Super Nintendo virtual consoles, like I mentioned before, and, you know, cloud saving and all that stuff. Now ask yourself, how many times have you done any of that? Ask yourself, How many times have you actually utilized these extras? Those of you who are current Nintendo Online subscription members, how many times have you played online multiplayer with your friends on your Switch? There could be a lot of you, and if that's so, that's great. How many times have you guys and girls played the Nintendo and Super Nintendo Virtual Console games? Maybe there's a handful of you. You know, I played them from time to time. Just to let you guys know, I share a family membership with a friend of mine under the $35 a year mark. How many times have you guys actually used cloud saving? Or those of you who are not subscription members, have you had the desire to utilize any of these perks? What I told my friend is don't even bother. Not worth it. It ain't worth it. $80 a year just so I can gain access to Nintendo 64 games and Genesis games? I don't even play Animal Crossing, so I don't care about the DLC. And I guarantee you that they're going to start tying in these DLCs with other games moving on in the future, right? Instead of, now you can get the DLC by buying it yourself. You'll just pay whatever that price is for the DLC itself. You don't have to be part of this membership. But as a perk, if you were, you get it as part of the membership. How many of you bought the Sega Genesis Mini? This thing. This thing came out about a year or two ago, right? Comes with all of these Genesis games, classic games, all that stuff like that. All the games I have here, that's what they're offering as part of this subscription. I already got this. I don't need that. So, you ask me, it ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. Nintendo, you're not showing me why I should be part of this subscription tier. So I'm happy that my friend and I and other friends that are part of this service, that we just have to stick to our $35 a year. Heck, sometimes I wonder if we even need to do that, because I couldn't even tell you the last time I played any of the classic NES games or SNES games, right? I rarely play anything online with my friends through the Switch, you know, because a lot of the Switch gaming I do are single player games. I don't really play a lot of online games, really, to be honest with you. All my online gaming happens through my PS5 or my Xbox. That's it. And with Game Pass, games that support cross-platform, boom, I can do that. So again, I have to ask the question, Nintendo, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know, why can't you guys just focus on bringing back first-party games? Where are the first-party games? You know, it's so right around the corner. We're gonna be getting the new Mario Party game. Awesome. Awesome for those who like to play Mario Party. I'm not one of them. You know, and I could be like maybe the minority here, and that's perfectly fine if I am. You know, yes, we're getting Breath of the Wild 2, hopefully next year. But where are the other games? You know, where are the other first-party games here? You know, I'm extremely disappointed in Nintendo right now, and I have been for a while, because I just don't know what they're doing. A lot of the third-party stuff that they announced, you know, I could get that on other systems, right? Sometimes they may even come up in, you know, Xbox Game Pass. So that's part of my subscription that time and time again pays for itself because of the amount of games I play through there. But yeah, I'm extremely disappointed. And again, I could be the minority here. For you guys watching, you know, guys and gals watching or listening, if you play Nintendo games on your Switch and you are satisfied, let me know. Let me know what's keeping you satisfied, you know, because for me personally, my Switch is hanging out docked in the little dock for months now. I've yet to touch it. Now that Metroid Dread is out, I get to finally play a new Nintendo Switch game. But when was the last time I got to play anything? I couldn't even tell you. It's been forever. So yeah, it's very disappointing. It's extremely disappointing. Um, Hopefully, Nintendo has some stuff up their sleeves, and then maybe next year they're gonna announce a bunch of stuff that's gonna be coming out. But as of right now, ugh, it's yeah, they just released their OLED version of the Switch, which also I feel was unnecessary. I mean, I know, yeah, there are some people who went out there and bought it and they were happy with it and all that stuff like that. But that's great if you plan to do a lot of mobile gaming with it. I don't. So again, it didn't speak to me. But again, I could just be the minority here. I don't know. Maybe that's the case. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, how you guys feel. Do you feel like me? Are you feeling my pain? I just want Nintendo to be better. Can't Nintendo be better? Before we end this week's episode, as always, every week I like to talk about a special collectible, and I call it the collectible of the week. It could be a high-end statue, an action figure, a model kit, Lego set, what have you. I love collectibles. A lot of people like you out there may love collectibles like me. So I like to kind of cover something that was just newly announced or what have you. And this week is a doozy. This is a doozy. And I'll tell you why. One, it's extremely high end. So even for myself, this is not something I would probably be able to get in my lifetime. Or who knows, maybe I can be lucky enough to do so. And it's something that is very unique. Now, I am a moderate Dungeons and Dragons fan, D&D. I have a bi-weekly D&D group that I play with. Those are my friends. We're currently in a campaign that's been lasting for a while now, but we're having a lot of fun with it. But when I was younger, I was very into reading a lot of the D&D books, especially the books that were around the Forgotten Realms, Icewind Dale, stuff like that. And that's when I was introduced to the author R.A. Salvatore, who created one of my all-time favorite fantasy characters, and that's Drizzt Do'Urden. But Drizzt is this dark elf who is really awesome, and he has this little panther buddy of his. He has these two special swords, and he's extremely powerful and one of the coolest characters I ever read. So it was announced, WizKids, and if you're not familiar with WizKids is this company who does a lot of gaming stuff. They were a company that I grew fond of because they created this game called HeroClix. HeroClix is this tabletop platform game where you collect these miniature figures, and they're all superhero based. So like your Marvel superheroes, your DC superheroes, then they eventually spawn into like independence movies, what have you, cartoons. They're still going on strong now, and they hold tournaments and all that stuff like that. And it basically, these figures have these clickable dials that show stats, and every time your character gets damaged, you click the amount of times it gets damaged, and the stats change or what have you, and they all have special powers, blah 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 blah. So they made a name for themselves for this game. And they started venturing more in recent years into D&D, and they create like these 3D maps and all that stuff like that. But something that I was not expecting was that they announced that one of their offerings, and that they're accepting pre-orders on right now, is a full-size Drizzt foam statue. And I was like, what? What are they doing? Check this bad boy out. It looks phenomenal. It's a full-scale figure made out of, I guess, this special foam. I guess to not make it so heavy, but to still make it so moldable that you can create the likeness and all that stuff like that. It has full cloth clothing. It looks like it will have lifelike hair. He's holding his swords. He got the armor. He got his cloak. What you could remove, so if you want to doll him up any way you want, you can. It stands about 5 feet 7 inches tall. Unbelievable. It weighs about 47 pounds, which for a full-scale statue like that, 47 pounds, that's not that bad, actually. And I guess that's hence why foam is used, to produce that type of material. But man, I saw this, I was like, holy shite. I can't believe that they're creating this. It looks fantastic. And the first thing I thought of was like, imagine having this in my place. Where the F am I going to put it? You know, the downsides of living in New York, guys and gals, if you don't know, is space. You don't have a lot of space, right? If I had a house, this could be something I could consider. You know, he could guard my den. He could guard my, you know, my man cave or what have you, right? The downside too is that he doesn't come with his little panther buddy, which is unfortunate. Or maybe that's to come later. Who knows, right? As an add-on accessory or what have you. But like I said, it's not cheap. It's available for pre-order now at $1,575. Very expensive, but a very, very cool, unique collectible here. For those who have the means, for those diehards that, you know, I know of a lot of people who buy statues, you know, like when you go to comic book shops, sometimes you'll see like the full-size scale statue of like Spider-Man or Iron Man in the armor with the light up, you know, chest and the helmet and all that. They've done full-size statues of, you know, Batman and Superman, and people actually do own these things because they make great talking pieces in your collection, right? They're good conversation pieces when you have it standing next to your bookshelf or by your door or what have you, especially if you have the room for it. If you have a special man cave or a den or a study, your office. When I worked for Ziff Davis back in the day, you know, when we acquired IGN, they brought over this giant statue from I forgot the game, Warhammer or something like that, and we had it standing right in front of our entrance, you know, and the thing was massive. It was huge. So it's a great complementary piece to any collection. It's a great conversation piece, especially if you're a diehard fan. This is something I would own if I had the means, more if I had the space, which I don't have. But if you do, and this is something that tickles your fancy, you could go to the WizKids website. I'll leave a link in the description for you guys to check out and see for yourself if this is something that you would want to pick up and secure for yourself, because it will be releasing sometime in 2022. And it looks like pre-orders are still open for it. So have at it if you so ever wish. So that's about it for now for this week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in to the Talking Talk Show podcast. Always appreciate your patronage and always appreciate all of you tuning in, whether it's on the YouTube channel or on our podcast platform. Again, don't forget, smash that like, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget, if you are interested in the audio version, to check out the show on your podcast platform of choice. Also stay tuned to the YouTube channel because I will be releasing some new reviews. As of the taping of this, I have just seen Dune, Denis Villeneuve's Dune, so check out for the review for that coming soon, and The French Dispatch, the latest from Wes Anderson. So do stay tuned for that, and always every week, do your best to give yourself some time for yourself. You know, whether it's reading your favorite book, playing your favorite video game, watching one of your favorite movies. It's always important after the busy week that you've had to allow some time for yourself to kind of unwind, give back some of your own mental health, and take some time just to do something fun. You know, take a walk, go to a museum, you know, if you feel comfortable. You know, just give yourself that time to really unwind, because there's nothing more important than your own mental health. It'll keep you going for weeks and weeks once you start allowing yourself that time to do so. And as always, like I say every week, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, and I'll catch all of you guys in the next episode. All right, y'all? Peace.